Council of the First Ones. I'm Kelly, your host, and joining me today is Rob McCullum from the Faking Filmation Kickstarter program. How are you doing today, Rob?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to have me on.
Well, I've been following James for many, many years, and it broke my heart when he got that cease and desist letter 2 years ago at PowerCon. I was there and saw the tears in his eyes, because this has been a passion project for him going back 2015, 2016, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, 3.5 years him and his team have been working on his unofficial cartoon, The Return of Faker.
I mean, I was there when he premiered Act 1 at the 2018 PowerCon, and we had a whole bunch of filmation artists there. And I could see the joy in their faces, how something they worked on 30 years ago, someone took the time to recreate it, and it looked as if they had done it. So I am so glad that you have decided to help James bring the full story to us. So how did this project actually begin?
Well, it was in 2018 at PowerCon. I mean, I had heard about Return of Faker leading up to that, of course, but, only bits and clips and imagery that he had shared online on the different socials. But it wasn't until 2018 when he was set to unveil everything that, like you said, that cease and desist letter hit, and everybody was just crushed for James.
That was at the 2019 PowerCon.
It was just a major blow. And I said to him, look, man, this is really unfortunate, but I don't think that's the end of the story. And I think that you got this letter, it actually will help aid the story. And I think there's a documentary here worth telling. And at that point, I had already made Power of Grayskull, The Definitive History of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, right, which is the feature-length documentary on Netflix. And I had met Erica Scheimer while doing that, and she had talked about how her father was, one of the pioneering producers of Saturday morning cartoons, and that phrase just stuck with me for years and years after. And I thought, it would be great to do a Filmation documentary, but I would want something contemporary, some sort of current day story as the vehicle, as the excuse to go back and look at why Filmation was so important. And then here comes James with this cartoon and this seemingly insurmountable obstacle, of trying to get this love letter to Filmation out there. And it just was the perfect mesh that once him and I started talking, that's when the documentary really was born. That, you know what, James, I want to tell your story, who you are, how you got to this point, and of course we're going to focus on how you made your cartoon. How is it possible that you made something so similar to the Filmation cartoon that so many of us, grew up watching and that impacted us? Because there's been fan films over the years, but then there's this, which is like a dead ringer. And for him to do a fan film about Faker and this thing not be official, there was just some really interesting thematic nuances it's just irresistible, and everything dovetails together so well that after a few more conversations, it was set in stone. And we've been working on this for probably since 2019 at PowerCon. In some form or other. I mean, the pandemic really slowed things down, but there's just not much we can do about that. And so here we are now with the light at the end of the tunnel, where things look like we could finally start scheduling stuff to a degree and really tell this story.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you at the 2016 PowerCon when you met Erica Scheimer, because I've been to almost every single PowerCon. I think we ran into each other, too. a few.
Oh, it's possible. I mean, the amount of people that we've met at PowerCon just that first year in 2016, filming with lots of fans, lots of people that have different parts of the brand, podcasters like yourself, people that do, other conventions that are there, and collectors, of course. Like we met hundreds of people that first year, and in the subsequent year we had people that went down as well that were part of Power of Grayskull. I interact with so many people online as well that it gets maddening to try to keep some of these people straight, but PowerCon is probably the coolest experience ever. Because we all share that love, and it's not like a competitive love like some other brands might be. Like He-Man and She-Ra is really about the community and that love, and everybody just loves it, for the right reasons.
Well, I always believe that was courtesy of Lou Scheimer and Filmation. Mattel gave us the physical He-Man, but the heart and soul really started with the Filmation and all the lessons that they taught us. You see it in our community.
Yeah, I agree. I think, everything from those little moral nuances at the end to all the characters that hesitate about which choice should they do, the remorse that they have, the reactions, all of that sticks with you when you're a kid going forward. It's impossible not to say that it doesn't help shape you. And like you said, Mattel gave us the toys, but their concept of He-Man, both in the story and just from a play pattern point of view, was vastly different than the world and the cohesion that Filmation gave us. I think one side needed the other for it to be the success that it was, but there was a real sense of moral integrity with the product that Filmation created.
Oh, yes. So, how surprised were you that within the first 48 hours, the whole Kickstarter was funded?
I'm still, overwhelmed by such a response. Kickstarter is anything but predictable. And, we were very lucky with Power of Grayskull to have a campaign that hit 25,000 in 4 days and finished at 76,000 by the end of it. But that was, 5 years ago, and there's been a lot of He-Man stuff that's come out, and there's a lot of He-Man stuff that's still coming out, and we're really talking about one specific aspect of He-Man, not all of it. So it's not something that's, for every He-Man fan. This isn't 2000X, this isn't Classics, this isn't toys at all, this isn't New Adventures, this is very specifically Filmation He-Man stuff, but of course James Eatock. Now James has been a presence in the He-Man community forever.
Yes.
So he is a well-recognized individual who's, very adored, and he's a nice guy too. He's certainly a product of that Filmation schooling. And, that certainly goes to the success, I think, more than anything else. But I didn't even think we'd hit the goal ever, the 30,000. I thought, I don't know if we're going to hit this. We don't have anything to show except for our concept and what we want to do. We haven't gone out and really filmed anything. I know what I want this to be about, and I have a track record for people that look into it, which is helpful. But James, what am I going to show for this trailer to convince people? And, he didn't know, and he didn't even get to see the trailer until about 3 or 4 days before the campaign launched because it was still working on it. Stuff takes time, of course, and
right.
Yeah, I mean, over $20,000 in the first day. Are you kidding me? How does that? Let me ask you, how does that happen? Because I could have never scripted that.
Well, you have a lot of people who grew up on the Filmation. I know we have at the Council of the First Ones, ever since the first little clip of Faking Filmation and Faking the Return of Faker has hit the internet, we've been talking about it, and we have been pushing. We're like, look, we have to make this happen. This is something for us. And James needs our backing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a fan-driven component to this, a very communal goal, which I love, which is a part of almost all my projects that I've, created. There's always an important fan element, and it's a tricky thing when you make a documentary on any kind of brand, because it's, do you focus on the fans? Do you focus on the people that made the thing? How much of a split is it? Because, you know, who owns it truly, like spiritually? Who owns that stuff? The people that created it and released it to the masses, or the people that continually consume it and keep it alive? So it's a tough balance every single time, and I know filmmakers struggle with putting fans into documentaries because they think it maybe doesn't legitimize the content that's on the screen because fans are so plentiful versus the people that created it. But I tell you, with something like this, and my favorite kind of film to make are these personal stories where it's the impossible dream. Can, you know, David overcome Goliath? Can James overcome this, you know, impending legal threat from NBC Universal to become victorious? Success for James is very clear. And I'm a fan first and foremost too. I want to see what's going to happen. So that's usually the impetus for me hoping that any of this stuff actually works. You know, will other people be interested as well? And I think, again, when we're talking about a community like the Masters of the Universe community, specifically the Filmation He-Man and She-Ra community, I think there's a real communal brotherhood and sisterhood that ties us together. Because that's what was presented in those shows, a real family feeling.
Now, going to that legal concern, what are some of the legal issues that NBC Universal is stating? I know that they own the entertainment rights courtesy of the Filmation catalog that they bought from, I believe it was DreamWorks, going all the way back.
Well, NBC, owns the imagery, the characters, the performances, all that stuff. Anything that is indicative of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is property of NBC Universal as far as that letter was dated in 2019. Have the rights shifted? I don't know. Are they going to shift? I don't know. Essentially, you can't use anything that's part of those cartoons that they hold the rights to, and that includes the audio tracks, the actor performances, the imagery, the colors. You can't even modify it the way that James did by taking, existing cells of He-Man and coloring them blue, for lack of a better description, because you don't have permission to do that. Even wanting to release it for free, you can't do that because you don't own those characters to release it for free. You can't make that decision. Just because it's a fan film doesn't mean you're legally allowed to do it. You have to, anybody that creates something would be fearful of somebody else taking it, distorting it, and putting it back out there. I think we can all kind of wrap our heads around that. And it's really hard when you have these mega brands with, 40, 50 years of history, because you have a lot of fan base who just, live, breathe, eat, sleep these things, and they want it to be a part of their lives, and they want to cross that threshold from fan and consumer to creator and giver. James wants to be a creator of He-Man. He's done the official guide from Dark Horse, which was the follow-up to his unofficial guide that he had done.
I was going to say, you did those unofficial guides, though he never did the She-Ra one.
Right, and so then he was able to cross that threshold to being like a recognized published author, like not just self-published, but like an entity picked it up, so that's one way he's crossed the threshold. But now he wants to do the same thing by actually making a cartoon. And the great thing about Faking Filmation, the documentary that we're going to get to make because we've crossed our thresholds and our goals and stretch goals, is we get to look at fan films and those interesting legal places. I mean, look at Star Trek Axanar, look at the Raiders of the Lost Ark film that those fellas made shot by shot as a remake, and what they could and couldn't do with it, thanks to the rights holders. There's a lot of examples of, fan fiction as a broader scope and the legal issues that come with it. It'll be interesting to see what James wants to do and what he's willing to do to make sure that this thing has life.
Now, I know on Facebook they've been saying that if we support the Faking Filmation, we're going to see the return of Faker. Is it going to be in its entirety, or will it be broken up, explaining his process? Or
that's a good question. That's a good question. No, we figured it out, and I mean, it's a question that I have to answer. It's out of James's hands. The deal I have with James is I need his cartoon to be able to showcase it for context of what's happening within the documentary. The Return of Faker will be a piece of bonus content, but it won't just be shown as if you were hitting play on, the BCI DVD release or anything like that. It'll be accompanied by surrounding pop-up video-like bubbles and trivia and whatnot. So as it plays, you'll probably have to watch it 2 or 3 times. Aw, shucks. But you'll see different quadrants of the screen filled with different information that reference different episodes or processes or special effects that were used to create what you're seeing on screen. So if you remember pop-up video or even blind date where information was proliferating the edges of the screen and around it, then that's what you're going to get for Return of Faker. At least that's the current plan that our lawyer signed off on right now, which sounds promising.
Yeah, and it brings us back to the 80s when we had those different types of entertainment, because I remember the VCR games and the book Choose Your Own Adventures, and it sounds like it's in line with that.
Yeah, it's very much a repeat viewing thing, like I said, where it's like you're going to sit down, you're going to watch it. It's going to be somewhat interactive because you're going to be reading the different sections. So if the Return of Faker is dead center as a square image, then you'll have 4 quadrants around it. The top might refer to special effects. The bottom might refer to episodes that were utilized during dialogue. The left might be storyboards that are shown in tandem with it, and the right might be musical notes or other interesting anecdotes or tidbits.
Okay. Just give me a second to scroll down because I have all my notes on one page.
Sure.
Now, we know about the DVD, the Blu-ray. I still can't believe you're doing the VCR tape. Talk about bringing back the 80s to us oversized children. But what other products are you offering with the Kickstarter program?
Yeah, I mean, a Kickstarter thing is a very difficult thing to figure out what you can offer, especially when you're a filmmaker and not a retail widget manufacturer. I'm a filmmaker. I make movies. I tell stories. That's where my expertise lies. So we know that we can always offer the DVD, the Blu-ray, and of course, for the first time, I'm offering a VHS tape because people are going nuts for it. It's a whole collecting subculture now, so why not? I've had it requested for every campaign I've done for every documentary, and I thought, you know what? I'm finally going to see if I can source it and make it cost effective, and so we're doing it. But we're also offering a retro slide viewer as an add-on item. So if people that remember Viewmasters will remember what these are, and this comes with almost a binocular like device that you hold up to your eyes, and you insert a circular slide wheel and you pull down on the lever to see different scenes of whatever you're looking at. In our case, it'll be Return of Faker. Right. And you'll probably see some process stuff as well. So one slide might show you some storyboards, and the next one will show you how it looks like finished and colored.
Oh, so we don't even have to dig out our old Viewmasters.
Yeah, it should work, but we're going to be sending one along with the way. So if you add that as an add-on, just like you can with posters or sketches by James Etalk that he'll do of any cartoon character that you want, you can get a retro slide viewer and you'll get the reel to kind of complete the whole experience. We're offering people the chance to have their name in the credits, of course, associate producer credits. I believe at this point all our executive producer credits are gone. We do have a few sponsorship opportunities, and that's pretty cool if you've got a convention, a podcast, or a YouTube channel or a company that really speaks to this audience, because then you would have your logo shown at the beginning of the Faking Filmation. So you hit play, boom, your logo comes up, in association with, and it would be all the other sponsors that are there, and then the film begins. So it'd always be the first thing that people remember, which is a really unique opportunity.
Oh. Okay. What? I'm sorry. I'm just going through the notes because like I said, my two colleagues sent me everything while I was still teaching this morning.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just listening to my junior executives on the floor above me run around like maniacs. I love it.
Okay. We already hit that. Now, I know you mentioned that you did work on the Gray Skull documentary. I remember even viewing that. But what other franchise have you done besides Masters of the Universe documentaries on?
Sure. Well, right now it's actually a great time for that question because our worldwide rollout of my last series, Action Figure Adventure, starts at the end of April, and it'll even expand more at the end of May to different platforms that people can check out. And that's about one man's mission to build the ultimate action figure auction in the name of charity. So Jay Bartlett is a super action figure collector of all different lines, Masters included, of course. And he's fronting $5,000 to put out there and build this amazing auction, and whatever everything sells for, less what he puts out, it goes to charity. We've got everybody that you can think of in this from all major lines, G.I. Joe, Masters, Transformers, and well and beyond. Super Sevens represented. Kevin Smith's there, of course. We got him at PowerCon to be in it. It's just a lot of fun. If you like toys and action figure culture and want to know more about why that stuff matters and want to see amazing mom and pop stores from Canada and the US, that's a 10-part doc series you're not going to want to miss. And one of my first big documentaries was called Nintendo Quest. It featured my same friend, Jay, trying to get an entire library of NES games in 30 days.
Wow.
Driving over 10,000 miles, no online purchases, to see if he could do it. It's his dream to always have an entire library of NES games. And I said, well, I dare you to do it. But I can only shoot for 30 days, so let's see if it can happen. So it's all about, video game culture and why the NES still resonates today, that very first system from 5 years ago. I've also done biopics on heavy metal bands, specifically Kitty, which is an all-female group that sold gold records and toured with Ozzy Osbourne. And a very personal film called Missing Mom, in which my brother and I hit the road trying to find our mom, who's been missing for 25 years, and run into a handful of distorted truths and secrets from family members who seemingly all have conflicting memories about what happened to our mom and where she might be and if she wants to be found. I like personal journey documentaries. I think they're very relatable, and I think the human element is undeniably powerful, and fact is always stranger than fiction. And that's a good thing.
Okay. Can you tell us about the 9 key goals of this Faking Filmation project that you have?
The 9 key goals. Oh my goodness, you're conjuring a list that I must have written at some point. Jeez, you're gonna have to help me. I'm sure if I listed 9 key goals, that they're important.
Well, we know the first one is everyone wants to see this Return of Faker, because it's gone into that mythic reality, sort of like Wonder Bread He-Man.
Yeah, I guess you could put it on the same par of that. I mean, for me, the key goals are sharing James's story and how cartoons can shape an individual like that to the point where they cross that threshold from fan to creator. I think that's a really important thing to document because it's happened to so many of us in different ways. I mean, it's happened to me. I mean, I'm making, professional feature-length films that are, being watched by people, and I've crossed that threshold. I'm now talking about all of this stuff on a real basis and not just talking about it with friends, which I think is great. I podcast like so many of us do, and I've written my own opinion pieces, but to cross that threshold as a creator instead of just a consumer is something very important in our pop culture laden and driven world. That's the number one goal for me, is exploring that personal story with James and how cartoons can shape us, or how any of these pop culture things can shape us. And then to be able to delve into filmation and really share their story with the world and what has made them great, especially when so many people, like to pass the buck on them or call it cheap or, boring or lame or slow or redundant type of content, or, they don't ever really kind of whisper it in the same kind of nuances as Batman the Animated Series, or I don't know, even like Hanna-Barbera or Deke or anything like that. Filmation is always looked down upon, and while not every show was a hit, it's undeniable their place in animation history, especially when you look at the 60s, and they had, big shows on every major network in the U.S. It's pretty incredible.
And also
then just cartoon culture.
And they also were able to get the FCC to change regulations, which enabled them to produce He-Man, because they weren't, prior to that, they couldn't do a show based on a toy.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly stringent political rules with what you could put in a cartoon, and even when He-Man came out, you couldn't have advertising for the show that was there.
Yep.
And the best part about all that is Mattel bought, the half-hour block from syndicated stations so they could pick whatever ads they wanted. And they were selling ads to McDonald's, which paid for the production of the cartoon because it was getting so many eyeballs, let alone, supporting all their other brands on it at the same time.
Plus the fact that they were able to do 65 episodes in one season. Yeah. You don't see that at all, even today with the modern animation style.
No, it's pretty rare. I mean, that gave them 13 weeks with 5 new episodes a week. It's what they call first run syndication. Usually, a broadcast run, you get 1 episode a week. And that's how kind of Saturday morning stuff started, right? You only had to have 1 show for every Saturday, and then when you had enough repeats, usually when you get to about 100 episodes, you could bundle them in. It would go part of the afternoon block. But He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was the very first syndicated run where they produced enough that for 13 weeks, 3 months, you could have a brand new episode. And then you could replay them again, because at that point, kids aren't going to remember what happened 90 days earlier.
That's for sure.
And that led to their animators working full time, and then they did it again with She-Ra.
Yes. And they really used their cells cleverly, because there were a lot of stock cells that were reused, and a limited number of new ones. So they were actually a little bit ahead of their time with their production routine.
Yeah, and it's that process that really ties into allowing James to do what he was able to do. Because James has such an encyclopedic knowledge of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, he knows where the shots are, what the sequences are, and he can storyboard how he wants his cartoon to be based on what exists on all 130 episodes of He-Man, plus the 93, I think, of She-Ra. And he even took some poses from stuff like Brave Star, too, and some frames from mini comics and, famous imagery that's, even stuff like Bruce Timm did, all to incorporate it within, like I said, his homage, his love letter. It's fantastic, and he wouldn't be able to do that with every cartoon, but because Filmation used the same as system, reusing sequences, he was able to make it work for his cartoon. So it's a perfect match.
Okay. I don't think I need that one. I'm just reading one of the questions. I'm like, we know how this project has been received by the public. We're all for it. We've been pushing it.
We've got some idea at this point.
I mean, I can't open Facebook without seeing at least 3 to 4 different community tabs talking about it.
Well, that's good.
So, it has been very well received. And I noticed in the last day or two that even James has started to help with some of the different goals that people can get, even the model sheets that he's producing for this.
James made a really nice offer for anybody that wants to pledge the $99 associate producer tier. On his own, he is going to put your name in the end credits of The Return of Faker, and you're going to get a signed Faker model sheet glossy print. So it's kind of like a turnaround, a 3-pose look at his version of Faker Filmation style. But I think the big thing there is, and I love the turnaround pose, but you get to have your name in the credits of his cartoon. You're also going to get everything that you pledged $99 for on the Kickstarter campaign. And if you want your name in the cartoon and that stuff there, you just got to give me the thumbs up and I'll let James take your name, because there's a privacy thing there, and put it in the cartoon. Like, what a cool way to cement your legacy on both projects, because the $99 in associate producer gets you listed as an associate producer. Plus, you get to be on that. It's great. It's a win-win.
Yeah, because that really surprised me when I'm like, whoa. And I know James at Christmas sends out to all his friends hand-drawn cartoons.
Yep.
And you've had to collect them over the years to get the full story of the Masters versus the Smurfs.
Yep. And obviously we've got the sketches available in this too. So James is going to do any sketches. It's an add-on item, so whatever pledge tier you pick, you can add a personalized sketch from James. I think it's like $15, but he'll do any cartoon character you want. Anyone, not just Masters or She-Ra. Any cartoon character. He says, I challenge you to make me draw anything. So I would love somebody to challenge him to do something crazy. You can have up to 5 characters if you want. So if you really want like all 4 Ninja Turtles and Splinter in there, he'll do that for you. And he's like, oh gosh, I hope somebody does that. I would love to draw that for them. Like, you never know.
Yeah, I could see some of our listeners trying to come up with that lovely challenge, seeing what we can get James to draw.
I mean, you can think about this. If you got 5 different characters, you could pick something from Ghostbusters or Mask or G.I. Joe and He-Man and Thundercats put in there, or Batman, all done in a unique James Etoch style. So, I mean, a lot of people are probably going to get Faker, or a lot of people are going to get He-Man and Skeletor. But, like, think out of the box. How can you have a truly unique, Etoch original? And how far are you going to push for it? I think you could have some cool combinations of characters.
Now, the other prop thing that I saw a lot on, and I know you nixed it, was the toy.
The action figure, yeah.
Where did the idea of trying to do a toy come from? Because I can see why you wouldn't want to do it. I can tell you logistics.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I just finished a series called Action Figure Adventure. I'm a very big toy fan and toy collector. I have a podcast called the Jay and Rob Toy Show. We talk about toys every week. I love toys. And anybody that loves toys and anybody that collects toys wants to make action figures. Whether they should or know how is a whole another thing. Now, this wasn't really my idea, to be honest. Our good friend Ken Coleman, who did, our poster for us, he does a lot of action figure design work himself, and he's working with Mark Taylor and Rebecca Taylor on an action figure line. And he said, do you think that's something that we could explore? I said, well, I think it's related to what we're doing, because at that point we had already announced a mini comic, and the mini comics come with an action figure, and this is He-Man, but we can't do any actual He-Man characters. So I said, why don't we just do a 3D rendering of something, anything with some packaging, just to see if people want an action figure before we get too deep down the rabbit hole of the impossible quest to actually create one. And we put it out there, and about 80% of people really like the idea of the action figure. Half of those people weren't sold on the design that we showcase, and about either the same half or the other 40% questioned our ability to execute the logistics and timing and all that, and who are our partners. And those are all, amazing concerns to have. People definitely want it. When and how are they going to get it, and what are they actually going to get are big questions. And Kickstarter campaigns can fall into the trap of wanting to please the momentum and the hungry appetite and satiate everybody's need for more that is connected to it. And it's so easy to get off course that I didn't want to do that with this. Things are going really well. And to promise something that's very big and only tangibly related to the theme it just seemed like more of a headache than a payoff. I mean, these things could have cost $200, $300 each. What are we going to charge? $400? We're going to make $100 per person only for this massive headache that could really sink a lot of time and energy to beyond our expertise. Like I said, I am a filmmaker. I am not an action figure toy maker. I don't want that headache. So there was enough doubt from other people plus my own inner voice saying don't do it that we just held off. But it was cool that people were excited by it. It's just not the right time to do it.
Yeah. And I think the mini comic is going way beyond. I wasn't even expecting that. So is it going to be like the traditional 6 to 8 page mini comic?
Yeah, it's going to be 8 pages in a very Masters of the Universe-like size. It's not going to be the exact specs. I think it's like 1 or 2 millimeters off on both the length and the width, but it's going to be 8 pages. James is in charge of it, and he's weighing whether he wants it to be a prequel or a sequel to The Return of Faker. And that's all I know about it. I said, James, we'll offer a mini comic if you want. We're not going to charge people for it. It'll just be kind of given to everybody for free because, again, I don't want to monetize anything with stuff that we don't own. But this is part of the story now. You, again, going from fan to creator for that ultimate experience. Now,
you have said you are a toy collector. So what collections do you have?
Oh, I love it all. And that is my biggest downfall. It is my kryptonite because there's so much stuff out there I love. I don't have a lot of vintage Masters, admittedly. When I was a kid, I lived with my parents at one point and things didn't work out and I was kind of whisked away in the middle of the night with only what I could kind of carry. So all of my Master stuff was pretty much gone. I had rebuilt some stuff in my teen years and my young adult developing years, but then I sold that turn of the century, 2000, when retro really got big again, to help fund films. So that's where that stuff went. So my current collection stuff is made up of probably more than anything stuff from the last 20 years. I got a good chunk of classics, of course. Some of that Super 7 stuff that got released, which is really nice. Some commemorative He-Man stuff. A lot of the Hasbro Marvel Legends on the Spider-Man retro cards from like the 90s cartoon series. I love the cartoon NECA Turtle set. I just wish the figure's more durable. The Super 7 TMNT Ultimate stuff is fantastic. 2002 He-Man stuff, of course. A couple Mythic Legions here and there. A lot of vintage Turtles. I guess that would be the biggest vintage stuff I have. Some Hasbro Star Wars Black Series stuff. Odds and Ends Mondo stuff, Batman and He-Man. Coraline stuff. That's about it.
Now, what message do you have to collectors who are considering whether or not to support this project? Because there's a handful that are probably still on the fence.
Sure. I think the biggest thing is if you are a fan of James Eatock and you are curious to see The Return of Faker, this is your chance. Because even if Faking Filmation gets, completed and distributed to the world, and, maybe it appears on Netflix like Power of Grayskull, the bonus content we create will not. This is your one chance to get your ticket punched, your seat locked in place to get all of our bonus content, whether it's extended interviews with people that worked at Filmation, whether it's seeing, more content from James's journey, or seeing that in-depth, process-driven look at The Return of Faker. This is your chance. If you're not interested in James's journey, but you want to see a documentary on cartoon culture and how it started in the 50s and where it's gone and how Filmation played a vital and key role in that, this is also your deal. We could easily call this thing Cartoon Quest because it's all about the ultimate hunt and the ultimate goal, that treasure of cartoons and how they've surrounded us with riches in different ways. Nobody's done a cartoon documentary like this. And to have a personal journey that is so steeped in cartoon fandom and driven by a community, you need to be a part of this. And you've only got, as of this recording, 16 days to do it, or you're going to miss the boat forever.
I do want to thank you for giving up your time.
Of course. I wish I could make more films so we could talk more frequently.
Well, who knows where we will be going from here on, because the world keeps changing. I
This
mean,
is true.
I know the people behind PowerCon, they never thought that our party, that's how it actually started, after San Diego Comic-Con, would turn into this huge convention almost 10 years later. And
there's nothing like PowerCon. I love it. I'm sad that due to Canada's vaccine rollout being at a snail's pace, I won't be able to go to PowerCon this year, but I'll be there next year. 100%.
well, I'm not going to be there either this year with the date that it falls on. I'm on the East Coast, and it's big milestone, unfortunately, with 9/11.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought, 20 years, 9/11, pandemic. Who knows what's going to happen? We have a crew going out to capture interviews and capture B-roll, because you can never have enough of that, but too much beyond my control for me to commit to something at this point.
Yeah. Plus, 2022, that's going to be the big year for all Masters of the Universe fans, because that is the 40th anniversary.
And I think it's the 35th anniversary of the movie, too.
Yes. What's it?
Isn't it 87?
87, so yes, it is.
There you go. It's a win-win again.
So, pandemic didn't keep us down for too long.
That's right.
Well, again, I want to thank you for your time and wish you a good journey, because anyone in the community knows we never say goodbye. We say good journey. And that's coming directly from the 87 film.
Well, thank you, and good journey to you as well.